What's going down, everybody? We're back. Welcome to another live stream right here on Cassius Morris Official. Hopping in for some haterade this evening. Guys, I felt like we needed a dose of some good old 50 Cent haterade. Arguably, or not even arguably, I think he's been crowned at this point the #1 biggest hater in the universe, in which everybody loves the output that he's putting out. Of course, talking about 50 Cent on his generational hater run against Diddy. Of course, you guys have seen that the brand new Netflix documentary has just come out. Of course, Sean Combs' The Reckoning, completely produced by 50 Cent. And today we're going to take a look at the interview that 50 recently gave, explaining not only his rationale behind this documentary, but how he actually went about obtaining exclusive footage of Diddy, even right leading up to when he was arrested for this docuseries. And also the debate as to whether or not this is a legitimate move by 50 or if this is simply a revenge piece that crosses from the line of journalism over into a personal vendetta. So we're going to tackle all these issues here on the live stream, and make sure that if you're showing love to the stream in the chat, make sure to make yourself heard, make yourself known, shoot me a message, and of course hit that like and subscribe so we can get the algorithm going to kick things off. So we're going to take a look at some of this video here. So this is an interview that came out recently on Good Morning America. Let's hear 50 out. Let's watch some of the exclusively obtained footage, and let's try to make our own conclusion as to whether or not this is a legitimate move against the ever infamous Sean Combs.
But Curtis, people know about this very public, long-standing feud that you've had with Sean Combs. So what brought you to this project?
Well,
was there anything that surprised you when you were watching the footage?
No, that didn't surprise me at all.
How did you go about getting the footage, and do you know the intent of the videographer? Why?
When you're a reality star, you're so used to being able, you have a camera around you all the time, but when you have that kind of power and everything, I'm going to edit this.
And do you think that hip-hop culture was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as hip-hop is fine with his behaviors.
This morning, never-before-seen footage of Sean Diddy Combs in the days leading up to his arrest in New York last September.
You want to put the stuff in my fanny pack, King?
The exclusive video obtained by Netflix shows Combs debating with his lawyers about strategy.
See, this is next level haterism right here to get this footage. But my biggest question, though, when I'm looking at this is, why was Diddy actually making a documentary leading up to his arrest? Part of me has to think that maybe he wasn't too worried about being put away or actually doing time if he's out here filming all of his actions leading up to being incarcerated. I would imagine his lawyers maybe had him gassed up and told him there's nothing to worry about.
Listen to me. I'm going to get off the phone right now, and I am going to let you professionals look at the situation and come back to me with a solution. No matter what nobody said. Let's just, here and there, y'all are not working together the right way. We're losing.
The footage is part of a new, highly anticipated...
You got that right, you're losing.
...by director Alex Stapleton and rapper and executive producer Curtis 50 Cent Jackson, titled Sean Combs, The Reckoning. Curtis, Alex, thank you so much for the time right now. I'm looking forward to talking about this, and this is something that a lot of people have been talking about for some time now. Alex, let me begin with you. The docuseries is entitled Sean Combs, The Reckoning. How is this one different from the others that have been about this very public, long-standing feud that you've had with Sean Combs? So what brought you to this project?
Well, I just want to make really hit television. I like the idea of it being exciting, and I picked this project and started working on it about 5 months before I found Alex. And I know that she has the artistic integrity that it would take to make it a great project, and there's the Quincy Jones era of production is find me that bass player because he's the baddest man out there in Chicago, and find me that keyboardist and fly them in from Miami, and we put them in and have the greatest jam session they ever heard, and it just always resulted in great and hit music. And I take that concept into television production.
See, I can actually respect this a lot. I like the fact that 50 comes out and says, look, the main priority behind me producing this docuseries is to make hit television. He could have tried to take the approach that he's some sort of community activist, like he's out here looking out for the victims, or he's trying to make a big difference and a big change in the dialogue. 50's going to keep it real. That's the one thing I like about him. He says, look, I saw an opportunity. I saw the chance to go ahead and put my name on it and become involved. And this is provocative. Look, this is going to be a big hit. So far, so good with 50. I feel like as long as you're being honest about the intent and you're not trying to play the white knight role of, you know, swooping in to try to be anybody's savior, I can actually respect it more because you're honest about the intentions.
Take that into everything you do, sir.
That's right.
You really do. And it really comes through, and appreciate that about you. As I said, never before seen footage of the days leading up to his arrest. Can you just talk a little bit about, was there anything that surprised you from that footage?
The footage, well, I mean, I think it's rare to find someone on who's being, you know, talked about all over the country. You know, all eyes were on him, you know, so to speak. And it was really interesting to see his last days of freedom, you know, and what was sort of important to him. Obviously, you know, there's phone calls with his attorneys, you know, with his team. It was very interesting to watch a man who's known for his brand presence. You know, he has a really amazing knack for marketing and all of that, and how he was sort of taking that into account in how he was coming off to the public, you know, in the days leading up to his arrest and indictment. So that was interesting. It was also just interesting to see how laid back he was at times. But, you know, the footage also, in the footage, we also see how he's getting incoming, you know, lawsuits are dropping, and to get his real-time perspective on that was sort of jaw-dropping when we first got our eyes on the footage.
Yeah, and I want to ask about that, because how did you go about getting the footage? And do you know the intent of the videographer, why he or this person took the footage?
She's a journalist, right?
Yeah.
So she's not going to reveal her sources, so you don't have to reveal that.
How can you expect somebody to reveal their sources mid-interview? Come on now. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. Not going to reveal my sources, but I think that partnering with someone like 50, it was very much in the universe as to what we were doing.
It's a lot easier to get it.
And you alluded.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like this is a big thing. If anybody has footage of Diddy or any sort of hidden secrets, I would imagine they were hanging on to it pretty close, waiting for an opportunity just like this. So when they hear 50 Cent is around the corner making a documentary about Diddy, I would imagine most of these guys ran at the opportunity, jumped at the opportunity to be able to expose him in this light to such a big platform. I think they show some of the actual footage too, so I want to go ahead and take a look at it. Yeah, so they do show some of the footage that was obtained. This is of Diddy when he actually popped out in Harlem and went to meet and greet fans. Which, by the way, I remember when he did this too. I was thinking, why is dude out here doing a meet and greet in public when he's about to go to prison for potentially the rest of his life? But I think this entire era where he was doing these, you know, pop-outs and meet and greets and doing these videos was a very performative era for Diddy. And again, I think this was him trying to act as if business is, you know, going as usual to maybe keep his mind off things and really trick his brain into thinking he could be free. And that's the one common trait that we've seen about Diddy throughout his career. No matter how many different scandals are happening around him, no matter how much it seems like the world around him might be crashing down, people are dying, people are being sued, people are being extorted or coming out and speaking against him, whatever the case may be, because there's always drama in Diddy's world. It's always a nightmare in Diddy's world for people in his circle. But no matter what's happening around him at any given moment, Diddy has always seemed to have this performative air of being unbothered, this unaffected sort of air about him that he wants to portray. But the only thing about it, and especially now when it comes to the current case that he's facing, is that it's completely disingenuous. This dude is the opposite of unbothered. I think this is a guy who pays attention to every little detail, and whenever something's not going his way, I think it gets to Diddy. I think it totally messes with him. So I think this whole act that he puts on of being this unaffected king who's just chilling with all his money and life's going so good for him, I'm personally not buying it anymore. And I think that's a lot of what we see from Sean Combs.
Opportunity for people to see what was really going on.
The exclusive video also shows Combs in Harlem greeting fans.
Off my back, bro. Lord, you win. I'm gonna win. Lord, you win. We win it.
I'll accept it. I need some hand sanitizer. Hold on. I got it. I've been out in the streets amongst the people.
Listen to this.
I take a bath. Like the amount of people that actually I'm coming in contact with, like that's what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Oh. It's like 150 hugs.
And you saw him.
Wow. So Diddy saying that he touched people's hands, the public, the general public, he touched their hands in Harlem. So now he has to take hand sanitizer and go take a bath because he was out amongst the common folk. Let's take one more look at this clip. And I like how he says, too, at the end, look, this is what I have to do. Very performative, because who's telling him he has to do it? Basically, that sounds like an admission to me saying, look, if I want people to like me, this is what I have to do. If I want to keep continuing this charade that I'm some sort of hip-hop mogul and somehow a good guy, this is what I have to do. Very telling of Diddy's perspective when it comes to actually being around the people.
You win. We win it.
I'll accept it. I need some hand sanitizer. Hold on. I got it. I've been out in the streets amongst the people. Yeah, I gotta take a bath.
I've been amongst the people. I gotta take a bath is crazy. Mind you, most people would need to take a bath after being around Diddy, based on most reports. They're probably cleaner on the streets than he is in his mansion.
Like the amount of people that actually I'm coming in contact with, like that's
Shout out Robin, shout out chat.
what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Oh. It's like 150 hugs.
And you saw him going out and meeting his fans, and you're a public person as well. And there was one instance in Harlem, and his reaction when those people
Went away.
Got in
the car and said, I feel like I need to wash, like I'm dirt. That was, it shows you his character.
Was that the reason for including it?
Yeah. I mean, and what's the odds that you would do that in front of the camera? Like that's one of the moments where he forgot he was on tape.
That's a pretty good point too. Because imagine if you're talking like that on camera about your fans and about people. Picture what you would say off camera. And I think this is a pretty good point here from 50. And I think a lot of people are trying to frame it like 50's going too far. Why is he picking on Diddy? Why is he doing all this stuff? I think there's two things to remember. Number one, we have to look at the person it's coming from, 50 Cent. Pretty level-headed guy. You know, a guy who has a pretty good reputation for being pretty on the money when it comes to calling things out. This isn't a guy who's overly been critical of too many people, but when he has been critical of people and decided to call people out, it's typically rooted in fact and typically rooted in something of substance. And that is definitely applicable to this situation with Diddy. He's calling a guy out relentlessly, but it's all facts. Every single thing that he's calling Diddy out on is complete facts. I need to turn up my volume. Okay, we'll crank up the volume a little bit. How's that? We turn up the volume a little bit. So everything he's asserting about Diddy is complete facts. The second thing is, we have to remember the fact that there's probably a lot that's happened behind the scenes between 50 Cent and Diddy that we actually don't know about. There's a lot of things that we do know, and a lot of things, you know, from their story that has been in the public sphere. That being said, there's a lot of things as well that we don't know which may have happened, which may be influencing 50's need and desire to expose Diddy in this way. So people are kind of seeing it in two ways. The people who are more so on Diddy's side are trying to maybe push back against 50. I would say 50's justified, though. I would say he's completely justified based on the circumstances. Let's keep watching.
You know what I'm saying? And then gets back in the car and goes, I feel dirty. I need to just go sanitize myself up.
The 4-part series also features 2 jurors from Combs' trial who are speaking for the first time about how they reached their mixed verdict, finding Combs guilty of 2 prostitution offenses, but clear of racketeering and sex trafficking charges.
Yeah, so how did that work, by the way? This to me was the most shocking part about the whole Diddy case. He was found completely innocent of racketeering, of the assaults that he did, of all the terrible crimes that he basically was accused of. But for some reason, prostitution charges are the ones that stuck. I still don't get that part about the Diddy verdict. There was so much evidence of so much wrongdoing, but none of those charges actually stuck. So I found that very confusing when it came to this sentencing.
Both sharing their thoughts on the relationship between Combs and singer Cassie. Juror 75 describing them as two people in love, and Juror 160 saying in part, domestic violence wasn't one of the charges. All this had to be played out in front of a jury of his peers, and you included a couple of jurors. Was there something that stood out to you about how they perceived what happened in court and what they learned about him?
I think, the jurors felt that they did the right thing. I think that they were very comfortable in, the decisions that were made. But I think that the goal of what the film is trying to do is to let the audience kind of come in to ask questions like, in a trial where there's so much media coverage, before, during, and after, were their decisions, colored by certain things, and who got the benefit of the doubt, in that courtroom? And it seems as though Sean Combs received the benefit of the doubt.
But it was pretty aggressive. Like the government came 3 different agencies at one time, Miami, LA, New York, raided all those places. You'd think that something extreme had happened.
Yeah, there is a lot of inconsistencies when it comes to the actual charges that Diddy was handed, and the ones that actually stuck. I do think it's a strange situation. And look, this kind of makes sense. I was thinking the whole time, even when this case first broke, is Diddy going to actually get some of the star treatment, some of the rich guy treatment? Because there's 2 different layers here, especially in America when you're facing legal troubles. One is if you have celebrity status. The other is if you're rich. Both of those things, even on their own, could potentially benefit you. You could be a celebrity who went broke and still get special treatment, or you could be a rich, anonymous person and get special treatment. Diddy is in a scenario where he's working with both advantages of being well-known and also being incredibly wealthy. So part of me was wondering if he would get some sort of special treatment in this case. And I think it's a situation where they made a big example out of him and they put him away for a long time. So on the surface, it doesn't really look like he's getting special treatment. However, when you really start to delve into the actual accusations against Diddy and what he was actually put away for, what he was actually convicted for, there's a lot of discrepancies there. And it's not the full story. What he's being held accountable for is not the full story of what actually happened. We haven't even dealt with a third of the allegations yet. Really, if you look at what's stuck on paper, why he's actually behind bars, it's not even a fraction of the story that we've heard. So at first I thought maybe he wasn't getting the special treatment because of the big circus that's gone around this and the fact that he's put away. But actually, I still think he did get some kind of special treatment, because if this would have been anybody else, anybody without the status, anybody else without the money, or whatever the case may be that's working in Diddy's favor, there's no chance in hell they would have gotten away with this. There's no chance in hell they would have been charged for so little. They would have been held to account for basically everything. So yeah, I think it's, even the verdict is somewhat performative in the sense that he's not simply being held to account.
Raided all those places. You'd think that something extreme had happened.
You guys heard from people or had people that the media, we asked, and they were like, don't want to talk to us.
Yeah.
But sat down with you all. Why do you think that was the case?
Me. It's a lot easier to do it because you feel like it's that, like, they know that I don't mind taking on the responsibility of it. Like, they're being the truth. He's not going to be afraid. They're like, 50 will just let my story be my story.
Yeah, so 50 acknowledging the leverage that he has in making this documentary. I don't think it could have been made the same way by anybody else. Again, I'm sure these guys were jumping at the chance for 50 to reveal their story. And also having 50 on their side probably empowered them, like he's saying, to be able to go ahead and speak their truth. I'm seeing in the chat, shout out to the chat, by the way, guys. 50's filled with joy. Oh, my God. 50's filled with joy when it comes to being a hater. I think this totally has made his year coming to the end of the year. I see in the chat, I've yet to hear anyone reference 50 Cent's use of the 48 laws of power and attacking your enemy on all sides while destroying their image and increasing your own while making the attack look honorable. Very interesting perspective there in the chat. Yeah, I mean, look, 50 Cent is a big proponent of the 48 laws of power. I believe he was the producer or said to be the producer of the series, or correct me if I'm wrong. I don't have my information right because I don't watch much TV. But either the show is going to be made or it's already been made by 50 Cent about the 48 laws of power. Absolutely, he uses that. And look, I think whatever he's using, he needs to use more of it. 50's a master. 50's, one of the masters of mental warfare. And he's also a dude who really has used all of those laws in his favor. Everything that 50's done has been on his own terms in terms of getting free of the mental chains that a lot of people have. 50 has a free mind. He's played the character of the gangster and he's lived the gangster life even, sure. But this is a dude who completely has his own mindset. He learned money. He learned business and finances instead of teaching himself even more things to get deeper in the streets. He found his way out. He never touched alcohol. He never touched drugs. As much as he bullshits about that, 50 will be in the music video with a bottle of champagne. A lot of people don't know. He said it in his books. There's nothing in that bottle of champagne except for sparkling apple juice. 50 doesn't drink. He doesn't smoke weed, but he'll make a song like High All the Time because he's playing the game, right? This is a guy who he understands how to sell something to the public, and he understands the difference between selling something for entertainment and actually living that thing. So a long roundabout way of saying that, yeah, I think 50 up here, he's on a totally different playing field. It's like a game of mental chess. He's not playing the game that a lot of us are playing. He's coming in with a clear mind, and he's coming in knowing that a lot of people are playing the same game, and he wants to win.
And not be afraid to change it.
But there are also some people that feel or want to know, and how do you respond to people who say that it's more about the disdain that you have for Sean Combs than it is for giving the victims a platform?
What they consider a pre-existing beef, right, for 20 years, right, is me being uncomfortable with him suggesting that he takes me shopping. And it's not personal. This is why it never resulted in me doing anything to him or him doing anything to me.
I don't know if you guys saw that video, by the way. We have to pull up the clip of Diddy. He told 50 Cent he was going to take him shopping. And this was the genesis of the feud where 50 Cent went up against Diddy. Now, we have to remember, too, that when this came out, this is 7-8 years ago on The Breakfast Club now that 50 said this story and made the insinuation that Diddy was potentially gay. That was what, started this whole feud. But we have to remember that this goes to show that 50's track record is actually correct, because 50 was talking about Diddy being fruity or Diddy being sus or whatever you want to call Diddy years ago. This isn't something that just came up now, and this isn't like 50 Cent is on the bandwagon. This is something that he's been talking about for almost a decade. Let's take a listen to this, explaining the beginning of the feud between Diddy and 50 Cent.
Fifth, when you continuously call Puff gay, does that affect your relationships in Hollywood?
I don't call him gay. I said,
Let me read it, Fifth.
Oh my God.
Sorry I can no longer help you guys. Soon you will all be gay and happy. You are all now left under leadership of Puffy Daddy. Report to the nearest rainbow. Dinner Thieves in theaters January 9th.
That's what he says.
Charlemagne always has the receipts, bro. Listen, say what you want about Charlemagne, love him or hate him, he always has the receipts. You got to give him that.
That's why he says things. He doesn't even know what he's saying is like fruity. You know what I'm saying? Like, he said something fabulous, and he goes, "Yo, but me and you, we ain't party. Like, we need to party." What is he talking about? That's the kind of stuff that when people say that to me, I get a little uncomfortable. I get uncomfortable. Like he said something to me one time, a long time ago, at Chris Lighty's wedding. He told me he'd take me shopping. I looked at him like, what'd you just say? Let me move, man, before I do something. You're gonna make me mess up the wedding.
Oh, that's a nice gesture.
Let me get out of no, dude, take me. That's what a guy says to a girl.
That girl's tripping. That was a nice gesture. What is she talking about? I would pay to see the video, by the way, of 50 Cent and his reaction when Diddy said that to him. Because what type of lunatic do you have to be to say something like that to 50 Cent? Look, I want to make this very clear. If you're gay or you want to do all that shit, I really don't give a damn. I think if Diddy was gay, that's not my issue in the whole story. Like, the reason I hate Diddy is because he's a fucking rapist and a abuser. I don't care about you being gay. But if you were gay, why would you try to do something like that to a person that you know is straight, who's also capable of beating your ass? That's the last thing I would do. That's like me if I see a dude who's super jacked, looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I like his girlfriend. And I know it's not going to work if I hit on his girlfriend, but I try to hit on his girl. Why would you put yourself in that situation? It's a no-win situation that's going to backfire. So Diddy, I think it just goes to show the fact that he couldn't even control himself around a dude who could clearly beat his ass, a dude who's clearly not interested in any of his freaky baby oil after hours bullshit. The fact that he couldn't even hold it within himself to make a move on that dude just goes to show how much of a menace and a freak Diddy really is, dude. He couldn't even control himself around the likes of 50 Cent, not caring about the risk, not caring about the fact that this dude is obviously not interested. And this is another reason why this guy has to be behind bars, because he has zero self-control. Let's keep listening.
And Cassie was an interview, but I mean, she's prominently figured in the series. How did you want to portray their relationship?
Well, just to piggyback just really quickly on what he's saying, because I think it's important to also let people know that the show is not completely the perspectives of people that did not like Sean, or people that were, anti-Sean, or people that had grievances, with Sean. There are also people that are in the series that still consider him to be a friend.
Stop the cap. I don't believe this at all. You're telling me if I turn on the 50 Cent documentary about Diddy, I'm going to see anybody saying a good word about him? I don't believe that shit. I've yet to actually watch the series, but there is no chance in hell they said a good word about that dude. Chat, do you guys believe this or no? I don't believe it.
Still consider him, to be like a family member. And I think for those people, when you asked, the reason for them wanting to sit down, I think obviously 50's involvement put a certain stamp on the project, but I also think that the filmmaking team behind it, there was an opportunity for them to really go into great details about their story and to be heard. There were lots of conversations before we even started rolling, tape. And I think that it became very obvious to most people that we weren't trying to just get the highlights, the salacious details, that the real goal was to storytell. And not everyone needed to have an allegation to be a part of this project. And I think that was what made people feel like this is a much more encompassing, project than just a series that's just based on allegation after allegation.
So let's talk a little bit more about Cassie and is she a victim in all this?
I believe Cassie's a victim in all this because she came in as she's like 18, like 19.
Is she a victim though? I mean, guys, let's be for real for 2 seconds. And this is the point where I'm probably going to get myself in trouble, but I don't really care. I got to state the facts. So yes, we saw the video of Cassie being abused. Clearly she's a victim when it comes to that scenario. I'm not going to sit here and say she's not a victim. And anybody who's abused in any way in that moment is clearly a victim. There's no debate there. That being said, I do have to be honest about the fact that I'm questioning Cassie's involvement due to the fact that she stayed for so long. This girl was involved in years and years of this, likely having many opportunities to leave. Cassie had money. She had the ability, as far as I know, unless there's parts of the story that we don't know, she had the ability to leave. I never heard anything about Diddy forcing her to stay or again, we don't know what happened per se. But she was involved in a lot of these things. She was involved in a lot of these freak-offs, and many of the people who were employed to be in these freak-offs have told a lot of stories about Cassie's involvement. It's not like, look, people have this idea that Cassie was sitting there sort of curled up in the corner while all these freak-offs were happening. That is not an accurate representation of what happened in the Diddy case. When you listen to the stories from the male escorts and the female escorts and all the people who've done interviews on DJ Vlad or Say Cheese or whatever, all these interview platforms, they tell many stories that Cassie was heavily involved and actually proactive in the freak-offs. She had big roles in all of these things. So for somebody to suggest, and again, it doesn't take away from the fact that she was victimized in certain scenarios. Again, when we watch that video of her getting beaten in the hotel, I'm not saying she wasn't a victim. Of course she was a victim there. And there's never a justification for that type of conduct. But the idea that she wasn't some form of accomplice, the idea that she wasn't a bit of a freak too, I'm not buying it. The fact that she was even dating a dude like Diddy, you got to be a bit of a freak. It's not like she didn't know this dude was a freak. She was with him for a long time, and it escalated. So there's got to be some level of acceptance. There's got to be some level of being into some freaky shit on Cassie's part. And people will probably try to twist what I'm saying, but I feel like a lot of people get it. If you're even in the situation where you're going to be entering the freak-offs, if you're in the situation with Diddy where you're drowning in baby oil, you're a bit of a freak. Doesn't mean you can't be a victim later, but you're a bit of a freak. So I really do question Cassie and the idea that she's painted as some sort of little angel when she is obviously a dirty woman. Just being completely 100% unfiltered, she's a dirty chick. I'm just speaking the facts now.
19 years old in the very beginning, so she only knows that after a while.
So this is Diddy. This is 50 speaking on Cassie now. Let's see what he has to say.
Cassie, and is she a victim in all this?
I believe Cassie's a victim in all this because she came in as she's like 18, like 19 years old in the very beginning, so she only knows that after a while. Over time, you're conditioned for it.
I think that without having an interview with her, I think that she was someone that was really important to bring up with other people that were witness or were around during her relationship with Sean Combs. I wanted her truth and her perspective to be a part of the fabric of the series, and as much as I could weave in, I think that it was really important to us to make sure that people remembered the age that she was and the context of where she was in life when she met Sean Combs. I think when you have a trial and you're talking about something that happened 15 or 20 years ago, she's now a married woman, she's a mother, she's in a completely different place. I think that people forget, especially when it comes to women, like who they were when these allegations were formed. And in that era and the middle of the show, we talk about Cassie, but we also talk about other, women who were around his ecosystem.
Hey, shout out the chat. Shout out chat. Do you guys think Cassie is a victim? That's what they're talking about in this interview with 50 Cent. of course, covering the Diddy documentary, the docuseries Sean Combs, The Reckoning. So, guys, let me know what you think about each topic we're talking about here. Again, I would say Cassie's a victim to an extent, but she's also an accomplice to an extent. And I look, just so you know, I'm not singling out Cassie when I say this. I feel this way about every single person in this Diddy trial, in this Diddy story, just to be completely frank. I'm talking about, and I'll name names, the security guards, Gene Deal, all these security goons who are around Diddy who now are trying to like make YouTube channels exposing the story. All you guys knew what was going on. Let me just make this abundantly clear. There's not a single person who was in this situation around Diddy, at those parties, in those households, in those rooms, or outside of those rooms even, waiting for the freak-offs to end or setting them up. You guys all knew. So, as much as anybody in his inner circle could be considered a victim, I could maybe see that angle. That being said, everybody in Diddy's circle was also an accomplice. And I've said it before. The worst, most concerning part about the Diddy situation is not actually him. It's the amount of people who there had to be complicit to let this happen, the amount of people who worked together to make all of these crimes happen, and the fact that Diddy's behind bars, that's fine, but all these people who were setting up the freak-offs, all these people cleaning the rooms, all these people going to Costco to buy bulk orders of baby oil, these people are all still out there, and they're ready and willing to work for the next celebrity who wants to be an evil guy. So the buck doesn't stop with Diddy. We just need to keep that in mind. The buck doesn't stop with Diddy. There's a lot of evil people involved, and they're all accomplices. They're all complicit. And
in that era and the middle of the show, we talk about Cassie, but we also talk else, right, of to this kid of this story about Cassie.
Look, if I didn't,
Do you think that hip hop?
It's also kind of a point with the series.
Yeah, and do you think that hip hop?
Clive Davis too is complicit, 100%. Probably one of the most complicit people. I'm seeing that in the chat now. I mean, guys, look, there's nobody who was in this world that wasn't complicit. And the sooner that we understand that, the better. It's crazy that we're in this era now, because the more that time goes by, the more things that used to be conspiracy theories are actually now accurate, proven to be accurate. You know, imagine 20 years ago if somebody tried to tell you this about Diddy, that there's all these people behind the scenes and they're all coordinating and they're all evil, they're all part of it. You would never believe this. But now in 2025, leading into 2026, all of a sudden, all these theories, all these things that people have said, they're all true. Jeffrey Epstein was true. All the stuff about the vaccines was mostly true. A lot of the stuff about the pandemic was true. The stuff about Diddy, the Illuminati, it's all true. How crazy does the world have to be to get to the point where the conspiracy theorists are actually the ones speaking sense? All of this shit is true.
Trial as much as Sean Combs was?
not all. Look, if I didn't say anything, you would interpret it as hip hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things, it would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior.
What's your intent with the series?
What do you guys think of that statement, that if 50 doesn't address it, it's going to give the message that hip-hop is for it? I actually tend to agree with what he's saying there, because it's true. And I think people have made this comment in the past, but a lot of the silence that we've seen from the industry is actually quite telling about this. People, you know, especially prominent black celebrities, people who have sort of put themselves in the spotlight that they're a representative of the black community, or, you know, they're the people to speak on these issues, maybe a guy like LeBron. The silence from people like that about this has been super loud. And I think that it does sort of point to the fact that a lot of people were complicit, but also that people are kind of willing to keep their heads down to not disrupt the flow of things and not disrupt the next person who's really going to do it. You know, a lot of these people who went to these parties, a lot of people who knew things, not only were they fine to not report on it and to sort of let it happen, but they also are thinking about their status and their place in this business. And if I do tell on Diddy, what does that mean for me, and what does that mean for the next guy and my career, essentially? So I think this is a very valid point from 50. For somebody who's so prominent within the same culture, who's actually doing things the right way, is going to come out and speak against somebody doing it the wrong way. That's going to have the positive ripple effect that we need. And I've said this on past reports about Diddy, but I think it's worth emphasizing. The best thing about him being caught is not the fact that he's off the streets per se, although that's a good thing. The real silver lining behind Diddy being caught and this whole case blowing up the way it has is that hopefully it can stop the next guy who gets rich and becomes a mogul from doing the exact same conduct. Hopefully there's not going to be another person who goes to LA like Cassie, who's a 19-year-old girl, and gets swooped up by some rich dude and gets abused like this, because hopefully we're creating a safeguard, we're creating checks and balances, we're creating a system to actually avoid that type of behavior, a system that doesn't encourage or incentivize that type of behavior from rich and powerful people. And I think that this comes from the top down. So if they're not feeling it from the industry, if they're not feeling it, the pushback from the actual good people in the business, the other powerful people, it's not really going to connect with them. If it's only the poor people and the people at the bottom who are saying Diddy's bad, that's not really going to impact Diddy and all the powerful people in the club. The way to impact Diddy and the way to stop the next Diddy or the next Harvey Weinstein or the next Jeffrey Epstein is to create the lack of incentive for this type of behavior and show that you will be publicly shamed by the same machine which puts you in the position to do so. The machine of fame and power can work two ways. It can work in a way that you can have the resources to help people and shed light on different things like 50 Cent is doing. Or it can work in the opposite way where you can actually have the ability to victimize people and harm people. So I think the people on the positive end of that spectrum of fame and power, the people who are using it for the right reasons, they actually have the moral obligation to shine the light on the people who are doing it for the wrong reasons, because them shining the light on those people is a lot bigger and stronger than when unknown people shine the light, or, less famous or less, rich people try to point it out. When it's their actual peers, when it's people who are at equal levels of power to them, that's when you make the real difference. So I honestly think that 50 doing this it's really good, and it's going to make a big difference. What do you guys think?
Sure was on trial as much as Sean Combs was?
Look, if I didn't say anything, you would.
I'm seeing in the chat that Cassie was another Ghislaine Maxwell. See, I kind of do see that angle in a way. I do see that angle to a degree. She's no Jane Doe here.
Interpret it as hip hop is fine with his behaviors. There's no one else being vocal. So you would look at it and just say, because that mind your business, or let me not say nothing about nothing, or those things, it would allow the entire culture to register as if they're for that behavior.
What's your intent with the series, with the film?
I mean, I think the intention is to give a more full-bodied experience to what happened, from the people that agreed to sit down and to participate. And I feel like the film asks a lot of questions, maybe more questions are asked than answers given. And I think that it was important to both of us to preserve the culture of hip hop, because I think all too often when projects like this are made, our culture is diminished. This is a story that I think a lot of people want to kind of rain down on the culture of hip hop as a whole, and they forget that these are the actions and the allegations of one man. Sean Combs has a lot of things that he's going to continue to have to work out, but he also contributed to the culture, and that was also important. So I hope that the takeaway is that sometimes things are, it's more than meets the eye, and there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of nuance to stories, and I feel like we tried to put all those layers in as much as we could.
See, this is the hardest part, though, about this whole situation with Diddy, and it's a part that we have to keep at front of mind if we're really being intellectually honest about this story, is that Diddy did make massive contributions to hip-hop, whether we like it or not, or whether we like him or not. And any person who's a hip-hop purist, any person who's really done their homework and has an understanding of the history of this genre and how it really was built up will inevitably have some form of respect for Diddy in a work sense. You know, I'm not talking about him as a person. I'm not talking about his character. I'm talking about his business acumen. I'm talking about his ability to build something from nothing and really make an impact in a space. It is inarguable that Diddy made a massive impact on hip-hop, so that is also why I think this is a hard situation. I think it's hard for the hip-hop purists to just turn their back on a guy who's been built up as a hero in this space. And it definitely is the weird dichotomy between fame and accomplishments and your personal character, who you really are behind the scenes and what you do. So it is a shame, but again, what 50's saying is so true. In order for that to really hold up and for hip-hop itself to actually be of value, for it to even matter that you have accomplishments in the hip-hop space, the hip-hop space needs to be preserved enough to have that respect for that to actually matter. And if if they were to let this slide, if they were to just let Diddy still be their crown jewel and sort of turn their head and bury their head in the sand as to what he's done already, that would actually diminish the credibility of the hip-hop space. That would diminish what it actually means to celebrate it, which is already happening, by the way. I mean, we're talking about a pretty much declining space already when it comes to hip-hop. So yeah, I mean, I do think that this is good, and I think that this actually helps preserve the space and save the space so there can at least be some respect within it for it to mean anything. Because if they were to continue to champion Diddy and just say, fuck everybody, free Diddy, he's innocent, they're going to have no credibility. It's going to completely go away.
You know, it's more than meets the eye, and there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of nuance to stories, and I feel like we tried to put all those layers in as much as we could.
So what is your intent? What is your hope?
Well, I hope it performs well and people get a chance to enjoy it.
Do you think the jury got it right?
Well, yeah. I don't like to go against the system. I have faith in our judicial system.
Dude is just absolutely beaming from the hate. For anybody who says hating is bad for your health, I think you're going to have to reconsider, because look at 50. He's glowing. This man is fueled on pure appetite for destruction in burying Diddy, and it seems to be doing him a lot of good for his health. It looks good on him to be such a hater. I'm actually considering this positive attitude of mine and considering just turning into a full-time hating motherfucker, because I might look and feel as good as 50 Cent. The haterade diet is real. But no, man, I think it's just so funny to see this shit.
He'll be home in 2 years. All right, he'll be fine.
He'll be home in 20 years. He'll be fine. Is crazy.
All right, he'll be fine.
I mean, he will be fine, though. He's still rich. That's the thing about being rich. You can go to jail in 20 years and come out and still have an amazing life. It's not like it's not like those guys who go to jail for 20 years and they have no money. Like, you come out with nothing. Diddy's going to come out, and the sad truth is his life is still going to be opulent and decadent and beautiful. He's still got houses. He's still got cars. He's still got boats, bro. Don't act like that shit all just went away because of 20 years, and he's probably going to get out, too. Got to remember that.
He'll be home in 2 years. All right, he'll be fine.
Anybody else that you wanted to speak to?
Sean Combs. Sean Combs, he's the missing ingredient, you know. I think that, again, another interesting thing about the series is that because of this footage that we have, and because of the incredible amount of archives, not just from the last days of, you know, leading up to his, the last days leading up to his arrest and the indictment, I do feel like there's a presence of him that happens throughout the series. Like, you kind of feel like you're with him and you get to know his personality a little bit more than him just being, you know, in a documentary with photographs, you know, and you never really get to